welcome all. So I think we're winning because we've worn your team down to 5 members.
That's all I got now, Craig.
And we're still all here. So that makes us the winner. I appreciate you being here. You know, I know the last time we met, that was March the 9th. And, you know, that was our 33rd negotiation session of these negotiations that I have been involved in. And this is our 34th. I didn't think we would get to the 34th because of the last offer and the nature of the last offer. And we took that to our membership, and they told us no, and that worried me, quite frankly, because that meant I thought we were at impasse, and we're not. And I appreciate the city's willingness to continue the dialogue, and we wanted to meet you in good faith. I wrote a letter after our union vote, and I said exactly that. We want to continue to negotiate. We want to try and work this out. What I have done today is to provide you with a new set of proposals on all the remaining unagreed issues except the EMS. I'm wanting to go through all of those proposals now and talk about what I understand the differences to be, where we're at, and don't have a pen. God forbid I should get a free pen out of the deal. On the EMS, we're not making a physical proposal at this point, but I'll talk about that at the end and where I think we are on that. So let's just talk about the articles, and I guess I'll just take them in numeric order. Okay, the first one is Article 4, which is duration. Y'all had proposed extending it to 2020. We're asking that you consider 2019. I would point out that that is when the police contract expires. So that would involve you in negotiating with both public safety groups at the same time. We think that that makes sense for a lot of different reasons. The first and most important reason is that in your other proposals, other portions of your last best offer, you indicated you want us to do things that are different from what you're asking the police to do, to give up things that you're not asking the police to give up. And we think it makes sense for you to approach both groups at the same time with those issues. And that's where we're coming from on that. And we're willing to do that. We just don't want to be the tip of the spear, so to speak. The next article that I think is still disputed is Article 8. And somebody correct me if I miss one. Wait.
Article 9.
Article 9. Like I said, Article 9. Article 9 is association rights. Green language is stuff that we've already agreed to. The only thing that is not agreed here is just really how to pay for the president's time off. And what I've done here is come up with something that I think mimics the current police contract with one important exception. Under the police contract, of course, the city provides time off for both a full-time president and half-time for a vice president. We're not asking you to do that. We're still limiting it to the president, but we are asking that it be paid for with sick leave, as the police do, and that it cover the base salary only, as has been done here historically, and is what is done for the police association. We think that what the association president does, there's been some talk in the past about how it really benefits the association. I think that a lot of what the association president does benefits both sides. To the extent that we have good labor relations, that's obviously a benefit. There's all sort of things that the president does that makes the city look good, fill the boot, things they do for various promotions, cancer awareness, things like that. I mean, a lot of what the president does is in the nature of increasing public awareness, helping with public perception of the department and the city as a whole. We do feel that to the extent that you want to change the way that time is paid for, that it makes sense to do it at the same time that you would consider those kinds of changes with the police. It is a lot easier for us to understand a change that is being asked of both groups simultaneously than it is to understand a change that's being asked of us and not of the other group, and for reasons that we don't understand. So literally, the only thing we're talking about, the difference between our proposals is just, whether there's going to be enough leave deducted to pay for the entire salary and benefits, and that doesn't. I think the economic cost to the city is fairly minimal, and the difference is negligible. So we're asking you to consider that. Now, on Article 10, which is wages.
Can I ask a question real
Sure,
quick
sure,
on
sure.
Article 9 on the president's time off? Is this the first time that y'all have proposed that it not be personal leave and be sick leave?
It is.
And what's the reason for that?
I was reviewing the police contract, and they pay for their president's time off with sick leave as opposed to personal leave. And so that was the thinking. I don't think that it ultimately matters to the city, or should. Sick leave is a benefit that at the end of your career you get paid for by and large. So, to the extent that it reduces your obligation at the end, it seems to me it's apples and oranges. But if you wanted to come back with a counter and keep it at personal leave, because it has been personal leave for us in the past, I don't think, that we would slam the door shut on something like that. Okay?
Okay.
Article 10, now Roxy, this ought to just warm the cockles of your heart, because I have actually put in the approximate 4%, 5% raise language.
I saw that.
That you have been requesting these many months. And
34 times.
At least 33. And so I'm obstinate, but not to the point of silliness. We put it in. I don't think it adds anything, but we put it in. Okay? We are asking for the raises. We've agreed to your 1.5% when the agreement is ratified. The longer this thing drags on, the less of a benefit that is to us. Because we have shortened the contract, we're asking for wage increases, as I've indicated, in each of the 3 Octobers of the contract. They're a little bit higher than yours. I don't think that they're I certainly don't think they're bank busters. I'm sure that you will price them out, and again, we haven't talked about wages in a long time. We do feel like we're playing a little bit of catch up here. I know that we didn't get some raises that other groups got. Even non-public safety got a 1.5 that we didn't get. The longer we wait, the longer we're falling behind. I really think increasing wages is something that is in both parties' interests. To the extent that your wages aren't competitive with other cities of comparable size, and they're not, you're really doing, I think, a little bit of harm to yourself, because unfortunately, Other cities that have bargaining are developing lateral hiring programs. Austin comes to mind. And they're going to be pulling away even your experienced people. And we're seeing that some with the Corpus Fire Department. And that's attrition. You know, every time you lose a veteran employee prior to retirement, that's a loss. It has a cost. So I don't think that the pay raises we're asking for in any way can be seen as bust the bank, but we're certainly willing to talk to you about that. I don't think ultimately that pay raises are the issue that are really keeping us from getting a contract. The next is Article 11, and that is supplemental pays. There's only a couple of minor changes from your proposal here. If you look at Section 2 at the end, you know, we've come up with this new concept, and y'all proposed this, and we agreed to it. Pay people for the shift work rather than, giving them just a set amount a month. And the thing is that we realize that in some cases, that could result in any given month in more money going into the firefighter's pocket. But in a lot of months, especially in any kind of month where you take a vacation or get injured or anything like that, it could work to the firefighter's detriment because they won't get any money that time. And so, on balance, we're not sure but what this is a pay loss to us, agreeing to the proposal that you've made. So we simply say that if you go on extended leave, and this obviously is approved leave, for 3 or more weeks, that you would do some sort of averaging to get them some ambulance duty benefit. Obviously, this only applies to people that are actually engaged in ambulance duty, and so it's a very limited benefit, but it could have a very negative effect on our firefighters' pocketbooks if, in fact, they're on any kind of extended leave, be it from an injury or a pre-scheduled vacation or anything. The other differences in Article 11 are things that I don't think that you have been opposed to in concept, but you have not included in your proposals. The grandfather provision is just to keep people from losing educational incentive pay that they're getting now as we go over to this new system of only awarding people for degrees. That grandfather provision would have less and less effect and would go out of existence over a period of time. Expense and textbook reimbursement, this is only continuing a current practice. It only applies to firefighters enrolled in a fire science program at Del Mar. And, there's a benefit to y'all from people, doing that. And so it seems to me that that's a very minor benefit that we would like to see continue. The performance award is something that's been happening for a number of years. We're asking that be continued. And bi-weekly pay periods has no financial implications, but we're just asking you to continue to pay us on a bi-weekly basis. That's something that is in the current contract, and I don't think I've heard the city say that they have any plans to move away from that. Article 12, overtime pay, we are asking you to consider keeping the system as is. I would point out that again that the system that we're proposing is what is in effect for the police union. We are proposing that our contracts end simultaneously, and then if you want to revisit the whole overtime pay issue, I do think that in terms of financial impact on the city, it will lessen over time as you get new people on board, increase staffing. I realize to the extent that you have an inability to do training schools in the future, that may result in increased amounts of overtime. But at the same time, I want to point out that I negotiate for fire and police departments around the state, and overtime pay, the way it's calculated in Corpus, is not an aberration. Firefighters historically are asked to work a lot of overtime, some of it regularly scheduled. And it is very common, and I'd be hard pressed to come up with an exception, that firefighters are paid overtime in a way that is more than what the minimal amount that the FLSA requires. So we're not talking about an aberration from the norm, and we are talking about a system that's been in effect in Corpus for a long time. And I think your finance department is probably secretly pushing for our proposal in this so that they don't have to recalibrate how they calculate overtime, because it would be a logistical problem, I assure you. But we're asking you to consider that. Article 32 is the assistant chief thing, and this may look at first blush like a move back. I don't think that it really is. We are still willing to give you one more position than what you've got right now. Right now, you have one deputy chief, one assistant chief, and one EMS department head. What are they called? EMS? Assistant EMS director that are appointed. That's all you have. Under this proposal, you would have an addition one. Instead of having one assistant and one deputy, you'd have 3 positions, and you can do it any way you want, 2 deputies and an assistant, or vice versa, but you would still have one more than you've got right now. And I guess that comes into play right now because you've got an assistant chief that recently retired, and you're already developing a test for that position, and you wouldn't, necessarily need to do that if you were able to appoint that person.
So wait, say that again, because I don't understand how going from 4 to 3 is not going back down.
You have always, somebody else can help me out here, but you have always counted your assistant EMS department, assistant EMS director as one of your appointed positions.
Right. But
So,
in our last proposals, that last sentence that's been in there, the assistant EMS director appointment is in addition to these, which was
that's
previously
always been in
for
there.
appointments.
That's always been in
Right.
there. And, the thing is, in talking to my own team, I understood that we were actually giving you 2 positions as opposed to 1 with that proposal. And the intent was not to give you 2 more than you had now, but to give you 1 more than you have now. So I did this to clarify that.
Oh, we were under the impression it was 2 additional appointments. Because we had talked about, and I'll tell you where that had come from, because we had talked about the ability to appoint deputy chiefs. And you and I disagree on the law, but I believe as it states that, and the Attorney General is of this opinion as well, was that basically we can.
Well, he's under indictment.
Well, it's alleged.
It is. I want to
It's
make it clear.
alleged.
I'm only talking about allegations.
There goes your board appointments.
I wasn't
But
serious.
at any rate, as the law stands right now, there is not a limitation to the appointment to the deputy chief position, and so that's where that all came from, because we had made a concession and said, okay, with regard to the deputy chiefs, even though the law gives us this, we'll be willing to do this, and that's where that 2 extra appointments had come from, was what our understanding was.
Ultimately, I don't think the appointment issue is really one that's going to divide us, but
you are going back a little bit backwards on this
I am.
one, as
I
well
am.
as
I am.
for instance, the sick leave and all the other ones.
Well,
Okay.
those are not really the issues that divide us, I don't think. But my question to you is, do y'all really think you need that extra appointment? I mean, you're getting a kind of a top-heavy department. I mean, you just promoted 3 captains to battalion chiefs, and so you're getting quite a hierarchy at the top. And what you're talking about is a system where you could literally have chief, 4 deputies and assistants, EMS department head, and then bat chiefs before you ever get to the people that actually are on the equipment. And this is the size of this department, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I mean, if it's something that you feel you need that additional appointment, then talk to us about that. I'm not sensing that this is a sticking point. You know, we can come to some kind of, but I'm not sure if I gave you the appointments, and when I say I'm talking union.
Right.
That y'all would even use them. You know? So.
Okay, well, and I have to look at this, and I have to go back and look at where all this came from, because I believe that we had accepted the part of our last best final was accepting your last proposal on this particular issue.
On this particular, yeah, and there's another change I made. If you look at the deputy chiefs, that we 2 or more years in the battalion chief rank, because we don't, deputy chief is such an important position. We want to make sure that they have the requisite. I don't think that's going to be a sticking point either, but that is a change. But you make a good point, because I neglected to say this, but you have asked for a change in the wording of the TA on the impasse procedure.
Right. And
we are agreeable to that. Okay, that change is no problem. We're willing to put that in. So yeah, we are. But remember that we had a TA on duration too. And so your last proposals moved away from 2 TAs.
Right, and that was specifically because we had not talked about the economics, and in order to put the economics that we believe were the most beneficial on the table, that's the reason for the duration. And so we have to look at that as well. I see that there's changes in your duration, there's changes in the economic proposal.
Well, I moved halfway towards you on the duration, because the TA was 2018.
Right.
So, and so, on both the things, the TAs that you came back with, we've moved toward you.
Right. And another factor in the duration was the length that these negotiations have also gone on. So that's something else that we were looking at.
Which brings me to my final point, which is EMS.
Mm-hmm.
EMS is the real issue that divides the parties. And, we were really taken aback when the council passed that resolution, and Kim made a public statement that indicated that there were 2 things. Number one, the council resolution, said that we had demanded a last best offer, which is not true. I'm willing to keep talking as long as there's any hope that talks can be productive. But the other thing was this whole idea that EMS is 80% of our job. And I really hope I'll never hear that again. EMS is an essential part of our job. It's not 80% of our job. You may have statistics that show that EMS is 80% of our calls. But, firefighter work involves constant work in training for things that we hope that'll never happen. And when you're stuck on an ambulance so much that you have an inability to do that other training, that hurts the fire department. And there's so much more to firefighting than just the ambulance work. And it is not true that the firefighters' proposals are aimed at making sure that they don't have to do a job that is 80% of their job. The firefighters, to a person, want to remain paramedic certified, I think, want to help with that essential function, want to, be able to do all the things they need to do to train for all the other jobs that they do. But, EMS really became part of the firefighting operation because nobody can do EMS for 20 years. You have to constantly cycle people in, to, and out of that job.
And if you don't develop a system that allows people to do that, then you suffer terrible burnout. And that's the problem that we have. For us, it's a safety issue. And if the people had a safety net, then I think very few of them would exercise that. And if you look at the period before 2010, when all of these problems started, I think you would see that very few people, tried to voluntarily step down a rank, etc. You and I have really tried hard between ourselves to come up with a solution. The solutions that you're proposing don't really ultimately give us what we feel we need. The solutions that I propose to you obviously don't give y'all what you feel you need. That's why I'm proposing a subcommittee that is 2 members of your team. I hope that, I know that Mr. Cardiel just retired, and congratulations, Andy, you got my dream job. But I would hope it would be 2 members for fire administration, and we would appoint 2 members from our committee, obviously firefighters, and let them engage in trying to come up with a solution that satisfies the city, that we're not trying to get out of doing our job, and more importantly, that meets your critical need to make sure that the ambulances can always be staffed, and at the same time gives our folks who ultimately need to ratify this contract the comfort level that they need, that there is a date beyond which they fulfilled the obligation under normal circumstances to ride on the ambulance. There's always going to be, your emergencies. We never want to put you in a situation where you literally cannot staff the ambulances. But there's a lot of problems, and trust me, we're not trying to negotiate staffing at the table. My hand to God. But, there needs to be a longer term solution to this problem, but we can't probably do it in the context of the contract. You have a relatively unique system, and y'all have been putting a Band-Aid on something for a long time. I mean, the job of riding the ambulance is a firefighter 2 EMS job. It was never intended to be a firefighter 1 job. It's still not. Every time you assign a firefighter 1 to ride the ambulance, you give them move-up pay to the firefighter 2 EMS rank, because that's the job they're doing. And it really ought to be that job, and there ought to be adequate staffing at the firefighter 2 EMS level to do that job, and quite frankly, there's not now. I mean, you can just count the number of firefighter 2 EMS you have and the number of ambulances you got in service, and it doesn't add up. And so, you're really kind of stretched here. And if you look at any other city, at the model that they're using, where they have a fire EMS service combined, you're going to find that they continually rotate people in, and they realize, here's where I'm going to be for X amount of time, and then they rotate out. And it's not just via promotion. It's, the engineer's job or the driver's job is, sometimes it's on the ambulance and sometimes it's on the fire truck. But it's never, a situation where I know that I'm going to spend the bulk of my career. And just, I thought maybe John was signaling to me here.
I was, but you said not to bother you while you're talking.
Yeah. And don't bother me when I'm not talking either, okay? But that's not, but those are longer term solutions. I think that, the problem is that we're not letting the fire department collectively come up with a solution that works meets the legitimate staffing needs that the administration has and meets the safety needs that the firefighters have. And quite frankly, I think we have some trust issues, that those on your side of the table aren't trusting us as much as we would hope they would, and those on this side of the table are not trusting your team as much as you would hope that they would. And so I think that if we put a subcommittee together and allow them to work collaboratively, that we, and the people in the department are the people that really understand this job. I mean, I've been playing it, trying to learn how firefighters do their job for over 30 years now, and I think if we do that, we can come up with a solution that, because it's coming from people on your side of the table, will give you the trust that that you need. People on our side of the table give us the trust that we need, and maybe it's a solution that gets us through. There are things that we haven't even talked about that might be part of that solution. I would trust the subcommittee to come up with something to come back to us with. It would be a collaborative effort, and they come back, and present it to us. And agreeing to the subcommittee is not agreeing to any particular solution. It's agreeing to mutually explore the problem. Why can't the two bargaining teams do it? Because quite frankly, we have a lot of people, and I'll use myself, that we really don't understand. I mean, I think if I could get the council members, the city manager, you, to do write-outs with EMS so that they could truly understand the nature of the job, it would go a long way towards helping us understand what are the nature of the concerns that my people have. But, barring that, I think we need to rely on the expertise of the real experts. And I'm certainly not suggesting that you rely on my team to come up with your solution. I'm certainly not suggesting that we rely just on your team. It's a joint effort. It has no downside. It only has a potential for getting us to a solution on this only intractable problem. And I want to point out, because both of our sides have kind of forgotten that how far we've come in these negotiations, these 33, now 34 sessions. I mean, we changed this contract from top to bottom, and my team has moved on a lot of things that were important to the city. Management rights, maintenance of standards, moving to a system whereby we're paying for ambulance duty based on the ride instead of just a monthly fee. I mean, as I was preparing the contract for the firefighter vote, I realized how many things that the city has asked us to do and that we have made changes. So I really don't think, I came up with a list of 8, I believe. I really don't think that it's just us being intransigent. I do think that if we get agreement on the EMS issue, on a basis that both sides can live with, that the rest of the contract should, there's no issue that we have that's harder than that issue. And so I really hope that y'all will seriously consider this proposal, because it's made earnestly. I think it's the way to go. And, I trust, we had a callback. We recently did the same thing with regards to the callback procedure. We made some relatively major changes in that procedure that work for both parties. It is a solution that might just work for us.
Okay.
So.
I'd like to say a couple of things, and then I'm going to ask a couple of questions about the subcommittee.
Okay.
Number one, thank you for being back at the table. I invite the open dialogue, and we're here in good faith, and we're here to listen to what the issues are. We understand that our last best final offer was taken to a vote, and that it was rejected by the membership. And we'd like to keep talking about why what the issues are in trying to bridge any kind of gap. And so we were looking to see number one, your response to the last best final offer, And number two, to see the counter proposals that you were bringing in response to that last best final offer. And we have most of those today, with the exception of the EMS proposal. And my understanding is your proposal is the subcommittee proposal, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So one of the things that I agree with you on is how far we have come in these contract negotiations and how we've kept it. We've both been here in good faith. We've kept it professional. We've gotten a lot of progress done. The city as well, and I don't have them listed out, but I'm sure that you understand that just as the fire union has made concessions, the city has made numerous concessions as well. One of the big ones that sticks out to me just in my mind without me having to list them out is the guarantee of a contract after a certain time period. It's not going to be ongoing, et cetera.
You're talking about the impasse procedure?
The impasse procedure ending in a binding arbitration that's done by a panel of 3 arbitrators, one being chosen by the city, one by the fire union, and then a neutral chosen by them, and then binding us to a contract. That's a big thing, because as you know, the current law does not require that. It requires that even though we come in collectively bargain in good faith, it does not require that it end in a contract. It doesn't require that one side be forced to make any kind of concession. So I think that's a good thing for both parties. And that's just one of the concessions. We've also put a lot of new money on the table. And I can go through and look through that contract, because you're right, we've made a lot of changes to the contract, and they're good for, they benefit both parties. And I'd like to keep our negotiating here as we have done on the table. I know that you mentioned about a statement that was made by Kim in the media, and that was in response to I believe there was a question made with regard to whether the city council had supported the last best final offer, and the city council, I guess, responded in a resolution just basically saying that they did support the last best and final offer. In response to that, there was a letter that was forwarded to me addressed to the mayor and city council, which outlined arguments, et cetera, and a response to that, which is fine, but what concerned in pursuant to the ground rules, I believe, we're to bring these concerns to the table, and I'm just bringing it here so that we can just talk about it and kind of make sure that we continue bargaining as we have been. Is that it was advised to be released to the media with arguments, etc. We had a concern with that, not that it was directed to the city council through the lead negotiator, but that it was being, the arguments, et cetera, being put in the public purview outside of here at the table or on the record. But at any rate, we've continued to confer in good faith. We were listening to your proposals. We've listened to your proposal on the subcommittees on the EMS. The city prides itself in the fire operations and the service that our firefighters provide. They're top-notch team, top-notch people, and we would like to have, we would like to keep that quality and keep that job up. And you're right. The facts state that EMS calls are 80% of the response calls. We don't argue that the firefighters don't undergo training for a multitude of things, that they don't fight fires, that they do a multitude of things, but when we look at it, they're there to respond to calls, and 80% of those EMS calls, 80% of those responses are for EMS calls. The EMS issue is also a safety issue for the city. It's a safety issue not only for the firefighters, but also for the citizens of our city. So everything that we have put on the table in regards to the EMS proposal has been with keeping this safety issue in mind for both our firefighters and the citizens of our city. So when we have come up with the proposal that we have on the table, it's keeping that in line, and what we're wanting to do is to not put our firefighters in a position where they're gonna be burned out because they're riding an ambulance 10 times a month, you know, for every single shift. We're trying to equalize that and trying to make sure that doesn't happen, make sure that they, that there's relief from that kind of stuff. So what we will do is I'll present your EMS proposal on the subcommittee to the city side. But I do have a couple of questions. You said that there's no downside to this. What happens if we have and I'm just putting this out there, I want to know what's going to happen. If we were to have a subcommittee with 2 people from your side and 2 people from our side sit down and come up with it, and then present it to the negotiating side, what if a side does not agree with it and decides not to agree or make a concession or say, okay, we're not gonna follow your recommendation? How would that be used against? Is it something that's gonna be used against that other side? Is it something that's gonna be used as part of the, you know, ongoing negotiation or in any kind of impasse procedure? Or how's the committee's recommendation gonna play into all of that?
So the concern is that if the subcommittee comes up with a solution and one side doesn't like it, will that be used against them in further proceedings?
Right, because you're saying there's nothing bad out of it, you know, and I understand what you're talking about when you're saying we're gonna explore our options, explore what kind of solutions, but what if it's something that just doesn't sit well with either side? Is that side who can't agree to that, even though the other side may agree to it, and even though the other side may make a concession and say, well, it's not quite what we wanted, but we think it's okay, and the other side just can't come to terms with it, how would that be used against the other side, or can it be used against the other side? Is it something that you would use in an impasse proceeding, or
Well, you know, yeah, I think a party could say, look, this was subcommittee, worked out, and let's just, and the city couldn't accept it. But, you know, we're making a case to a fact finder who's making a recommendation that the city doesn't have to accept. And then we're left with going to court and trying to use the judicial resolution mechanism. And that mechanism really is totally different because, you know, the judge has a statutory standard that the judge applies. Of course, there'd be arguments about, is that procedure even constitutional, et cetera. I know that. But let's assume constitutional, you know, that judge looks at private sector wages and working conditions and is supposed to impose something similar. So I don't know how it could be effectively used against you in court in an attempt to resolve the contract. Would we maybe make it known to the fact finder? You know, quite frankly, I hadn't even thought about this, but my initial impulse is sure. Just as if the subcommittee comes up with something that we can't accept and you want to say, well, look, there are people who help come up with this and it's still not good enough for them.
Right, it can definitely go both sides. I just want to fully understand
But if
what is this committee's recommendation, what weight is it going to have? What is it really going to mean? Because if we're kind of using it as an exploratory committee, is it something that we just leave just that? We have a subcommittee, we get recommendations, either we accept the recommendations or we can't accept the recommendations, and then that kind of stays there, or is it something that continues to go on with regard to the whatever negotiations are left?
You know, I hadn't thought about it, but if that's the concern that you have.
Well, I'm just trying to understand exactly what this subcommittee really means, or what this recommendation is going to.
I'm more concerned, you know, with whether the subcommittee can come up with a solution. I mean, it's not a given that the two sides, but I do think that there's a good chance they'll come up with a solution. And my goal is really, you know, to give both sides a comfort level that we're not being sold a bill of goods here. You know, this really will work, or we believe in good faith. it really will work, to give you that comfort level. Now, if there's something about the proposal that your own, that you still can't accept, then, you would have the ability to make that case in front of a fact finder who, after all, is only making a recommendation anyway. The whole purpose of fact finding is just to give us an opportunity, to have a third party neutral look at this stuff and try and figure out for us who's being more reasonable. Sometimes we win, sometimes you win. That's been my experience. But I'm not looking past the subcommittee to how can we use this, because if we come up with an agreement that's acceptable to your people, I'm assuming that we're going to have made some major compromises on both sides.
Right.
And so I'm really hopeful that that wouldn't be a bridge we'd have to cross. But, I've been wrong before. But if that is the concern, I don't think that that's a very great concern. If there's something the subcommittee comes up with that you can't live with, I assume you have good reasons. I assure you that if they come up with something that I can't live with, I'm going to be ready to marshal my reasons. And I would expect it to be used against me in fact finding, But at the same time, if that's something that is concerning, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Don't just reject the idea out of hand because of a fear of how it might be used.
Right, and what I'm really asking the question is, I'm trying to understand what this subcommittee looks like, what a recommendation really means, and how the effect of the recommendation would go on later, because I know I'm gonna have to answer those questions for my people, and I just wanna make sure that I understand that. And I understand that if we had a different idea of a subcommittee, we'd be able to come and
Yeah.
present it on the table, but
That's right.
first I just wanted to make sure that I understood what the proposal is with regard to the EMS issue, so that I can properly and fully explain it to the city side.
What I'm really seeking to ask both sides to do is to step back one step from the table and let our subject matter experts really look at it and see if they can come up with something that works for both sides. Because I think that to some extent, we've been kind of talking past each other here.
Okay.
Okay?
If we were to go down the road of a subcommittee, as you have proposed, what would that do with regard to the bargaining period? Would we just extend it until the subcommittee? How long would a subcommittee meet, or how long would we give them to come up with something?
I don't have any authority from my team right now to extend the bargaining, but I would recommend to my team that the subcommittee meets that we extend the bargaining to see if we can.
Okay.
Because my goal is still to make a deal at the table. Always has been, always will be, until I just am convinced that it's just not gonna happen.
Okay. Okay, if I have any further questions on that, I'll probably email you with the specific questions so that I can get the answers, and I'll
Okay.
I'm
Well,
gonna take
Roxy-
your proposals
yeah.
and present them to my my side, the city side. We're really interested in looking what the EMS what this EMS issue would turn out, whether it'd be a counter proposal or whether we go through with this subcommittee. So let me look at that.
Okay.
I can't get you the answer obviously this afternoon. There's many people that I have to talk to, and it's difficult to get them together all in an afternoon. So we had looked at possibly sitting back at the table sometime on my calendar allows the 25th, I think in conjunction with your calendar. So that's what I was looking at, and at least I think our bargaining period ends this weekend, so at least I'll probably need more than the weekend in order to get an answer to your proposals or response.
Let me talk to my team about that,
Okay.
and we'll figure that out.
Okay.
I do need to say one thing about what you said, because I don't want there to be any miscommunication. When the I did send you a letter, and I did say in that letter, I don't think the council's getting the whole story. And you obviously shared that with the council, and I actually appreciate that. okay? But then when the council did, you know, because we had said, well, we're gonna keep the negotiations at the table. But when the council did is they passed a resolution. And in the resolution, part of the resolution was that we had demanded a last offer, which was not true. But the resolution itself, as everything the council does, was very public. And to make matters worse, I found out about it from Ms. Womack's press statement, you know, which totally blindsided us. So obviously, I had to respond. And even then, I didn't just, you know, write the council a letter and send it to them directly, partly because I'm an attorney and they're represented by an attorney and I understand my obligations. So I wrote a letter that I sent to you asking you to share it with the council as you had the prior letter. And you did that, I assume.
Yes.
But I told my team that they could release it to the public because I didn't want Ms. Womack's statement to be the only thing about our negotiations that was out there. So it wasn't something that I did, you know, for no reason. I mean, I felt like I had no choice but to do that. The council resolution, of course, fanned the flames a lot on our side because, well, for a lot of reasons. So, you know, I really appreciate the fact that you're back here at the bargaining table, trying to make proposals, trying to make it work. That's what we're trying to do. Our folks are very, and I'm not talking about my team, I'm talking about my membership is very upset and agitated. I mean, there are a lot of people on my side that just want to, you know, we had our chance, we didn't make it, let's go to court. And that's always an option that's available to both sides. But I believe in bargaining. I believe in it for a lot of reasons. It gives employees a voice in, you know, something that's one of the most important aspects of their life, their work. I mean, you go to a party, you ask a person their name, the second thing you ask them is what did they do? And it really just hit everybody so negatively when they heard that 80% of their job was EMS. You know, because if you ask any firefighter why you became a firefighter, you know, it's to help people in crisis, you know, and the places where you really risk your life are in the firefighting itself. Not just firefighting, if it's a tornado or a hurricane or a swift water rescue or a hazardous materials spill, or, you know, there's so many ways in which firefighters are asked to risk their lives, to try and quantify it just on the basis of the number of calls they make. It was hurtful. And it's not only hurtful, but it is kind of scary because it reflects a misunderstanding of the job. And it's so easy, you know, to kind of, you know, just mischaracterize what it is that firefighters do. And sometimes we forget about that. Firefighting is a calling. And you ask any firefighter why they got in it, very few will say, well, I got in it so I could be an emergency medical worker. They love doing that work. They do it whether they're on the back of a fire truck or in an ambulance. They do it all the time. I think probably 95% of our people are paramedic certified and want to stay that way. And but you know, it's a full-time job. Right down from learning all the streets in your area to learning the latest medical protocols to you name it, and being ready to do things that you hope you'll never have to do. I think I pointed out to you in a hall conference, you know, that in the recent flood between Houston and Austin, in 24 hours, they had 1,000 water rescues in one night, 24-hour period. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I heard on the news, so I assume it's true. Because when have we ever heard things in the news that wasn't true? unless it comes from the National Enquirer, I'm just gonna say, if it comes from the National Enquirer, don't believe it. But at any rate, so it's really hard for us. And we didn't feel like we're the ones that went away from the table first. We thought the council kind of jumped the gun on us. And I didn't really have any warning about that. I mean, I found out about it from my people who found out about it from watching the news. And so, I had to respond the way I did. And if that's causing concerns on your side, I can't apologize for it. I'd do it again.
Well, my main point is, one of the reasons that we're here today is, let's keep the line of communication open, and let's try to keep it open as it has been since we've started this deal in 2015. I think we've been sitting here, we've been meeting since January 22nd, 2015, and we've had a lot of progress. The city understands the value and the importance of a firefighter and all of the services that they provide to the community, and they, one of the key things that is thought about when coming up with these proposals is, again, the safety of the firefighter, as well as the safety of the citizens of this community. So everything that we have done and put on the table has taken all that you've said into consideration, into the kind of job that a firefighter, is required of a firefighter in an emergency medical service or any kind of emergency responder. So we'll take this back. I'll present it to my people. We'll talk about it, and I'll let you know, and we'll look at some dates.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there any reason to come back this afternoon, or anything more we can do today?
Probably not. I was trying to see what I could get done this afternoon, and I can't meet with enough people to be able to come back with any kind of response today, and I need to see what I need to look more at this, or talk more with them about this EMS subcommittee proposal. But for today, I don't have any counter proposals or any other things to put on the table. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm trying to remember. I think that our entire contract, has 38 different articles. We're down to negotiating just a handful of them.
Right.
We've made a ton of progress. I want to reiterate something that I've said in my letters to you. I mean, to have progress and to make a deal, we're willing to get mediator in here, either through the FMCS or otherwise. We're willing to think outside the box. Sometimes you need outside help. And I mean, that's the whole fact-finding thing, but we're both hoping we don't have to go there. But let's do that. I mean, if it will help. And I guess I'm saying trust the process. The process doesn't just involve you and me talking across the table. Enjoy talking to you, but, maybe, just we can't get it done. But, getting the subcommittee is, a little bit outside the box, perhaps, but it's not really. I mean, people do it all the time. That's a whole interest-based bargaining thing. Come up with solutions that are win-win. And you've got real problems on the city side, I understand, and quite frankly, they're not all located in the fire department. We understand that too. We're not being myopic about that. But at the same time, I think if we just expand our horizon a little bit, we can get an agreement on this, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just say something? If we agree to an extension, are we only gonna meet on the 25th, or are you gonna schedule more than one day? So you can have time when whatever we come back with, to meet with your people, at least meet the next day, so we can get something done, because I know my side, we've had 33, 34 extensions, and sessions, and going back and forth. We've got a lot of extensions too. But, are you willing to meet more than just one day, or are we gonna schedule more than one day? on
Well,
the next
see,
extension.
one of the things I had talked to about Craig is that, we're at a point where we're talking about some issues that, we're at the we're dealing with very narrow issues, and we've moved a lot on them, so we're kind of, we need authority to move. And I have a lot, I know that you have your committee here with you, but at the city, I have to deal with the governing body, I have to deal with managers, I have to deal with, obtaining, getting information from the people who know about operations, people, doing this stuff. So I have a lot of homework that I have to do in order to have a proper, informed decision and response. And that's very difficult to do on the city side in an afternoon or a couple of hours. So I feel that we make more progress when we're given the proper time in order to do our due diligence with regard to responding to the proposals or whatever is on the table at that time. So I don't know, Craig and I have talked about our calendars. There's some calendaring issues because this is not the only thing that I do, and I know that he has other obligations as well. So I don't know. I don't know what that's gonna look like. We have been talking about one date in particular.
Just for the record, we actually talked about meeting again next week. My schedule wouldn't allow it.
Yes, we did. We did talk about meeting next week.
I think you're looking at going back to the city manager and council next week and talking with them.
Yes.
Advising them of our requests. But I think all John's asking is, are we ready to really try and get, bring this thing to a head?
Well, that's where we're here today. I mean, we're trying to we're trying to have dialogue, talk about it. So, I can't tell you, yeah, we're gonna meet the 21st or the 23rd through the 27th, or.
All I'm saying is that when we give a 2-week extension, and in those 2 weeks, we meet one time, and then then we need another extension, are we gonna meet more than just one time in a 14-day extension? I mean, we need to know, because I know you have a lot to do, I know Craig has a lot to do, but this is priority. I mean, the city needs to put more priority on these issues. There's only a handful left.
Priority.
There's only a handful left that you need to tell us something. We can't just keep going on extension after an extension, only meeting one time. Not just this team, our membership wants us to move in another direction, and we keep telling them, no, we're trying to get something done at the table, and they're telling me, well, it can't be that much of a priority if you're only gonna meet one time during the 2-week extension. It's hard to explain that to them.
Well, we have talked about meeting more than one time, my particular schedule in the next couple of months, along with Craig's schedule. Just I don't know if it'll allow that, but we have talked about that. So I can't tell you right now.
Okay.
Okay.
And I hope you understand. It's not that we don't want to. I just can't. I need to make sure that I schedule this is a priority. So I'm not gonna schedule negotiations and a trial setting or a hearing or meetings all at the same time. I need to make sure that we're focused on this. And I need to make sure that due diligence is properly done on this, which we have done this entire time. And I wanna continue providing that to you in good faith. Okay?
Okay.
Let's go back to our accomplishment, guys.